There was a slew of economic data this week which gave an indication of the health of the South African economy. Now, the good news is that it's no longer in a critical condition, but a lot still has to be done. Let's get the details from Rupiwa Madzena. She joins us now for that. So the South African Reserve Bank releasing its quarterly bulletin. What's it showing?
No, absolutely, Shahan. And just before I get into that quarterly bulletin, you mentioned that there was a lot of economic data out. We saw formal employment numbers come out. We lost 16,000 jobs in the formal sector. We saw that, but we did see that mining and manufacturing data showed that there was a really surprising improvement within the sector in terms of production and wholesale. And CPI disappointed slightly, increasing by about 5.2% in this quarter from about 5.1 in the previous quarter. So back to that quarterly bulletin, which was data that we were looking keenly for this afternoon. So the South African Reserve Bank has indicated that inflows into South Africa in terms of investment have decreased by about 3 billion rand. So they were about 31.6 billion, and now we stand at around 27.9 rather. And it's going to be interesting to see how this the trend continues, because after Cyril Ramaphosa took over as president of the country, he really spearheaded this investment drive into the country, trying to get $100 billion worth of investment within the next 5 years, putting together that envoy. And it's very interesting because within those few months, they were able to get about $20 billion in investment. And we saw this coming through after that investment summit. I think it was in October. So I think what people are keeping an eye on here is where exactly will this investment be directed? Will it be manufacturing, agriculture, job creation, SME development? We're going to be keeping a close eye on our president.
Yeah, we should actually keep a close eye on him. Of course, then Moody's are not too worried about Eskom going to government for more money. Why?
Yeah, so if you remember the story, Eskom said that it had a debt relief plan and it was looking to have government take on 100 billion rand of its debt. I think it's got just over 450 billion rand in debt that it wants relief from. Moody's coming out to say, look, it's not going to have a major impact on the current debt to GDP ratio. It will increase by about 2 percentage points to about 55.8, and that's our debt to GDP. So that is not major, but it's still a significant impact on the economy. President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday did say this was a no-go area. Another plan's going to have to be found. But we do know Eskom and implementing turnaround plans, they're not good at that. They've had one that they've delayed over and over again. And in fact, Moody's says they're not seeing this plan being implemented by the time we go into elections in 2019. So they're going to be keenly looking at Eskom to see whether or not, if they get this debt relief, they will be able to increase efficiencies within the power grid.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting to see what's happening at Eskom. I don't even know if we can believe that.
It's like a soap opera, wouldn't you
say?
It
is. It's terrible, actually. It's sad. And then Johnson & Johnson shares taking a nosedive today after a Reuters report about asbestos. They knew it was in baby powder. I was shocked.
Right? Aren't you glad you don't have children?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's actually a very sad story, because apparently lawyers, doctors, management knew that there were traces of asbestos in their talc powder, baby powder, since about 1971 to the early 2000s. They were aware of this, and the report does show this from testimony by executives from lawsuits that subsequently came up there. So a lawsuit which they had to pay about $4.69 billion to 22 women who had been negatively impacted by that asbestos being in that powder. So it led to ovarian issues as well as cancers that these women suffered, and they had to pay that fine. They did appeal, and higher courts did subsequently, they upheld that judgment by that court. So Johnson & Johnson, if I could just read for you quickly, they have vehemently denied it, and they've said that the Reuters article is one-sided, false and inflammatory. Simply put, the story is an absurd conspiracy theory. So they have kind of reiterated that they have global standards in terms of regulations and following through with those regulations, and they will continue to defend the quality of their product. In the meantime, though, there are people all over the world that use the product and unfortunately may get ill from those traces of asbestos.
Yeah, it's a shame. And of course,
profits over anything else, Shahan.
Yep. Thanks so much for that. Appreciate it.